Welcome to our sixth webinar on our webinar series. I'm Gopi Kitnasamy. I'm the head of the rehabilitation services at Merrill J. Fernando Foundation, which is the charity arm of Dilmati. And today's topic is a very interesting and a very important topic because we always stress the importance of early identification and intervention, because we strongly believe that early identification and intervention are the key to the childhood disability, success in childhood disabilities. And today we have Dr. Azyan Shafeek, who is a consultant pediatrician, and he is also a family physician, and has a postgraduate degree in pediatric nutrition. So we are privileged and happy to have Dr. Azyan Shafeek. So over to you.
Thank you, Gopi. I am quite really happy to basically be part of MJF Charitable Foundation in dealing with lots of differently able kids. And thanks again, Gopi, for this great opportunity. So today's topic is actually delayed milestones and early intervention. Basically, it's a very important topic, and I think it's a very complicated topic and important as well as a vast topic. But probably I'll try to get only the salient features and important thing what is necessary for the mother and the parents as well as the caregivers, basically. And therefore, just sit and concentrate on the flow of the events or the lecture. So we'll just welcome to the milestone roller coaster, basically, right? Okay. So what is delayed milestones? Actually, delayed milestones is a behavior or physical skills in infants and children as they grow. Basically, like sitting, crawling, standing, and always for every milestone there is a range. There is a normal range beyond which we have to think about interacting, or whether the child is achieving that beyond within the range, right? So in every milestone, I say when I tell the limit age, basically at limit age is the age where the maximum it can go. And beyond that, if you feel that your child has not attained, don't get excited about things, but you can give a little time more that your caregiver or the doctor will decide on what is next, right? So what is delayed milestones? Delayed milestones or developmental delay is when a child does not reach the expected milestone on time. For an example, not able to sit by the time the baby reaches 1 year. Basically, you start sitting from 6 months onwards with support to by 8 months without support, and then that is a normal development. But you can watch till 12 months. By the time to 10 to 12 months, when the child is not attained the sitting position, then we'll have to see what is wrong, right? So what is early intervention? The other aspect of my lecture, right? Services and supports that help babies and toddlers with developmental delay and their families. Basically, like example like speech therapy and physical therapy, right? Which is actually a team effort for early intervention. So we'll see one by one each, right? Right. Now, generally we start with the nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord and the neurons in the brain, which starts developing in the baby but from the 16th day of conception. From the time the conception starts, 16 days onwards, the brain starts developing. You see how early it starts developing, right? From the 16th day, it starts developing, and it develops in stages. And starting from the spinal cord, it goes upwards. First, the spinal cord develops and closes, and then goes up. And finally, the higher centers, the brain develops, right? So that is the cerebral cortex, right? The last stage is between the fifth and the 15th month, which is called the myelination stage, which occurs. The myelination, that means the final stage where the coating of the nerves happen. Now, during this stage is the most vulnerable phase where which failure causes in the myelination. Any points or any events or anything which causes any abnormalities onto the myelination process will cause failure in the developmental delay. Right. What are the factors influencing development? Now, these are the factors I've just listed out, like things like toxins. These are factors which is when the mother is pregnant, right, or even prenatally, during pregnancy, and postnatally, right. So when the things like toxins, infections, drugs, alcohol, then the nutrition plays a major part. Then obviously the chromosomal structure, chromosomal disorders, and so on, right. Then the postnatal is that we don't realize that the parental IQ also plays a major part, because if the parent is not intelligent to handle things, then that also plays a major part in the development, right. Then you have the social environment after the baby is in the baby is born, right. After that, when the baby starts growing, the social environment, then the personality, then emotional factors, like how important this is, like basically the caregiver, how close you are to the caregiver. Then there are cultural factors. Then nutrition plays a major part in the, especially in the first 100 days to 1000 days, the first part of the child's life, the nutrition matters a lot, right. Yeah. Then the parenting, how you are parenting, and the physical health. So these are all the most important aspects where you have to keep in the brain when you're rearing children, right. These are the categories of development. So we consider development of a child in 4 categories, right. One is the fine motor and vision. Fine motor and vision, that means fine motor is the small hand skills, what you do, like drawing and things like that, right. And vision, fine motor and vision goes together, like when you pick up things, when you hold things, and you need the eyesight, proper eyesight. So therefore we have grouped that together, fine motor and vision. Speech, language, and hearing, now that also goes together. So a child who can hear will anyway speak. So hearing and speech goes together. So these are communication skills, right. Then receptive and expressive language and non-verbal communication. Now these are very I don't want to go into very details of these, right. I'll just highlight those things so that you have a just a rough mind, right. Right. Then the other thing is the gross motor. Gross motor is large movements, like what we mostly look for, like when is your child sitting, when is he walking, when is he running, when is he going upstairs, downstairs, when is he drinking with a cup, things like that, right. Then the social behavior and play, like including feeding, toileting, dressing, and social relationship. How you do your things in social background. So these are the all 4 things are very, very important. So any insult can occur in one of these places, and that causes the hindrance into the development of the child. Right. Now we'll go one by one. Now these are the important things. We will go like from month to month, like the most important thing. First time when you will take a child, baby who is 2 months old, what does he do, like what do you have to look for, like things like that, when this is the best person to look for all these things is the mother or the caregiver, basically the parents who are with the child all the time. So what I've done is I have just highlighted only few points, because there is a whole lot of things like a baby can do at 2 months, and then what comes in the normal milestones, right. So he begins to smile at people by 6 weeks, generally between 6 and 8 weeks, which actually the beginning of, it's called a social smile, right. Then he tries to look at the parent, though he don't identify the parent, but someone who is familiar, who is he gives a regard, basically. Then he makes coos and making gurgling noises. So he starts making noises basically by 2 months, turns the head towards the sound. So he gets attracted towards sound. He looks at the sounds, right? Pays attention to faces. Now he looks at faces, right? He looks at faces. And you might have seen in your own child that, by 2 months, 2 to 2.5 months, they look at you, just stare at you, things like that, right? Tries to pay attention. Begins to follow things with eyes and recognizes people at distances. Though the latter part is not very important, but it begins to follow things with his eyes, right? Now, these are few things which I told. Now, what is more important in this is begin to smile by 6 to 8 weeks, right? And makes noise. Then turning the head towards sound. Just keep these 3 points in your mind. Now, what happens? You have to now this. Why I put this slide is just to have a like a warning, like, right? Does not watch things as they move. By 2 months, if the child does not watch things as they move, does not respond to loud sounds, and does not smile at people. That's why I try to say this. These are three most important things at 2 months, basically. Now, there's no hard and fast. You don't get excited that when your child does not do this at exactly at 2 months. Maybe by 2.5 months, closer to 3 months, some of these children do. But then have a watchful eye. Keep a track on that. Okay, my child didn't smile at 2 months. Keep a track so that it's easier for the healthcare worker to decide on what to do. Right. So let's go to the 4 months. Now, what does he do mainly at 4 months? So smile spontaneously, especially at people. So basically what happens in milestones is that from 2 months, you carry on to the fourth month. But same thing, which is in a little higher grade he does, right? But he'll start, you start getting new things also, right? Achievements, right? So baby smiles at 4 months. So he spontaneously smiles. You have seen some of these babies, they spontaneously smile, right? When you look at people, likes to play with people and might cry when playing stops. So someone is playing with the baby, and then suddenly you stop playing, and then he starts crying, right? You just notice that. This is a very important, I have seen in most of the babies like this, right? Copy some movements and facial expressions like smiling and frowning. So you can interact with the baby and see this, right? Now, what I underline is begins to babble. This is very important. By 4 months, the child babbles, right? So that is a very important. So I underline the ones which you have to basically give more priority, right? Babbles with expressions and copies sounds he hears. So whatever he hears, he tries to babbles out. Cries in different ways. Now, by this time, by the fourth month, the child will have different cries for different requirements. Like he can cry in a different way for hunger, in pain, or being tired. So most of the parents, it's difficult to pick it up because the cry. Most of the parents, when the baby cries, thinks that he or she is hungry and starts feeding. But then there are other aspects also, like when the child is scared of something, when the child is environmental, when he's lonely, when he's so being tired, want to sleep, also he cries, right? So he reaches for a toy with one hand, so he can grab, he can reach, he'll just go to reach. Now you offer something, he'll try to reach. So that is also very important. Follows a moving thing from side to side. So from side to side, basically can move things from side to side. Response to affection, holds head is steady, unsupported. Now this is the other thing. Now that is the first thing you have to see in the baby's development, is the whether you can support your head. Generally, supporting the head starts from 12 weeks to 16 weeks. 12 weeks is roughly around 3 months to 3.5 months to 4 months. So if the child by 4 months, he should be able to hold his head steadily without a support. That means without the head falling forward, right? So that is a very important milestone, right? Maybe able to roll on from tummy to back. You put him on tummy, he can roll on to the back, right? Then the other important aspect is can bring his hand to the mouth. He can grab an object, or he can just sometimes he can bring the finger. He tries to bring the finger to the mouth, right? Then when lying flat on the stomach, he tries to push his elbow and come forward. So these are, now the last one is not necessary. Now don't see all these points should be there at 4 months, but at least concentrate on those things which I have highlighted, which I have actually underlined, right? So now, why I now this is what I have been trying to say, that act early, or keep it in mind to keep this, to take to the next level. That if the baby can't hold the head steadily by 4 months, that is, like I told you, that they start by 12 to 16 months. So by 12, you start getting steady, but by 16 months to 16 to 17 months, that is by 4 months, you should be able to hold your head very steady. Doesn't bring your things to mouth. If he does not bring things to your mouth, that also you have to be in watch, right? Does not watch things as they move. Like, if he does not watch things as they move up, does not coo or make sound. So now by this time he should make sounds, right? Like we start making sound by 2 months, by 4 months he should make sounds. Has trouble in moving the direction of eyeball from all directions. Does not smile at people. So these are, again, I told you that from 2 months it's a upgradation basically. So by 4 months, if he's not smiling, then you'll have to look for, right? Let's go to the next level, basically the 6th month. What happens at 6th month, right? Knows familiar faces and begins to know if someone is a stranger. Now the stranger trying to pick up who is familiar, who is stranger starts by 6 months, but you are not fully aware of who is stranger, and then you don't have the other aspects of that. I'll come to that next, right? But he will try to figure out who is a stranger and who is familiar. So then likes to look at self in a mirror. Now, therefore, we advise some of these the parents that basically in the cot or the playpen or whatever it is to hang keep a mirror by the side, so that he plays with the mirror, he looks at the mirror, he looks at the self. So these are basically a developmental process. So there are certain things where you should offer to the baby to keep going basically. So right, so I won't go into details of those, right? So let's fix up to this thing, right? So responds to sounds by making sound. So now when you make a sound, he tries to respond to that sound, right? Now people who have children, parents who have children who have gone through this phase will try to recollect, will try to know whether these things happen or not, right? So then strings of vowels like babbling, ah, e, o, these kind of things can come in. Then he responds to own name. He starts to respond by 6 months to his own name. So basically now when you tell his name in short or long, whatever is the first name, basically the first name, they respond to that. They look at you, right? So begins to say the consonant sounds like jabbering, v, b, m, like things like that, but not very clear, right? Then brings things to mouth. Like I told you, that starts from 4th month, 6th month. So he brings things to mouth. Begins to pass things from one hand to another. Now, this is the other aspect we also ask when you see a baby, that whether he's able to hold one object like a building block or a square, whatever it is, or a ball or whatever it is, and then pass on to the other hand. So this is also very important. Like by 6 months, he should be able to transfer object from one hand to another, right? Then children who started from rolling from tummy to back can roll in both directions, from tummy to back and back to the tummy, right? So now, like I told you earlier, they begin to sit with support by 6 months. You support them, make them sit, and then you can hold them and support them to sit. So they start to sit by 6 months with support, then go on to without support. Then rocks back and forth. They know how to rock back and forth. When you keep on a playpen, when you keep on a feeding chair, they sit. When they make to sit, they rock back and forth, right? Where do you have to get a little worried? Shows no affection to caregivers. That means he doesn't care about whether you smile or whether he doesn't have any expression. He doesn't smile at you. He doesn't look at you. Doesn't respond to sound around him. Doesn't look at the side of the sound. Doesn't follow sound. Does not roll over in both the directions or one of the directions. So does not roll over at all by 6 months. If the child is not rolling over by 6 months, then you'll have to look into. Does not laugh and make squealing noises. Seems very stiff and tight muscles. Now these are the other things. By 6 months to 7 months, when they start moving their limbs, you'll have to see how fit is the limbs. Whether it's very tight, whether it is very flappy, very flabby, you have to see. Like seems like floppy, like rag dolls, right? Has difficulty in getting things to mouth. Again, the same thing. 4th month. By 6 months, whether the baby is not able to put things in the mouth, right? So next we'll go to the 9th month. Right, what do you do at 9 months? Now these are 9 months is another crucial place where most of the things have, whatever you have seen from 2, 4, 6 months, have gone a little upgraded version, that he has achieved almost all of them. And 9 months is a turning point of most of the to identify some of these developmental disorders and all those things, right? Maybe afraid. Now the stranger, looking at the stranger, like I told you, like I explained you, starts by 6 months. And now by 9 months, he gets something called a stranger anxiety, that he becomes a little anxious over stranger. He starts crying by if a stranger carries him, if a stranger comes close to him and starts trying to talk to him, he starts crying, right? Clings with familiar adults. So they become very clingy with adults, with the mother or the father or who is close to them, with the care, with the family, right? Then by the time he has a favorite toy, he always likes to keep that favorite toy, like, and then makes double syllable babble, like, from single syllable like ma, all those things. He goes to ba ba ba, ma, things like that, right? Right. Copies sounds and gestures of others. Uses fingers to point things. Now keep this in mind, that he uses fingers to point things. Like, now when you show an object in distance or something else, saying that this is this, pointing at, he will look at that. That is a very, very important thing, which starts by 9 months, right? Looks at things you hide. Now you can try playing this hide and seek, like, peekaboo things, like, you can hide things under the blanket. Yeah, he watches your hand going under the blanket, and he tries to look for things which you hide, right? Plays peekaboo, like I told you, right? Moves things smoothly from one hand to another. So now by this time, he has not roughly, he should move very smoothly, transfer objects from one hand to another by 9 months, right? Then he'll be able to pick small thing, though it's not very basically fine tuned, but he can pick like a cereal or small thing with his thumb and index finger, and then he drops it. He picks it, drops it. So that it's called a pincer grasp. Pincer grasp starts by 9 months and then goes on and then develop by 1 year, right? Then can get into sitting position. From his position, he can sit onto that position. So then he starts sitting by support. Without support, he starts sitting by 8 months. By 10 months, he'll achieve that. Generally, like I told you, that without support, they start by 6 months and then go on to 8 months to 10 months. He sits without support. Then crawls, basically crawling. Now, generally, children these days does not crawl. Most of the times, they skip the crawling process, because most of the parents don't keep their children on the floor, right? They always make them sit and then straight stand. So therefore, these children learn from sitting to standing position rather than crawling. So crawling is also one of the important thing in their development, because of the movements and the way the elbows and the knees touch the floor when they crawl, these kind of things. So therefore, very important to put your child on a mat or a mattress so that he crawls, right? So you got to act early at 9 months if he does not bear weight on legs. Now, the other thing is that from 4th month to 6th month, you can start holding your baby and seeing how is he able to move his limbs, whether he can keep his limbs on the floor, and then whether he tries to bounce back, right? So by 9 months, he generally likes to keep his legs and bear his weight. But if he does not support his legs, he doesn't bear his weight with support on the legs, then you'll have to look into. Does not sit with help, right? So by this time, he should sit without help. But if he does not sit with help, then there is something serious, right? Does not babble, mama, 2-syllable language, babbles. Does not respond to his own name. So by this time, he should respond to his own name. He should look at you when you call his name. Doesn't look where you point. Now, this is again another important where I previously underlined that when you point at something, he has to look into that, right? So keep that in mind very well. Does not transfer toys from one hand to another. So that is same thing. So by this time, he should smoothly transfer objects or things from one hand to another, right? If it does not happen, then that is a red flag. What happens at 1 year? Now, this is the stranger. The stranger anxiety starts from 6 months. He looks at the strangers. Then by 9 months, the anxiety starts. Then he becomes very nervous by 1 year. So this again, it's an upgradation. So he becomes very shy and nervous with the strangers, right? Cries when mom and dad leaves. Now you might have seen this. By 1 year old, you keep them and go out. They start crying. Some of them cry for hours and hours, basically, right? Has favorite things and people. So now he has picked up his favorite toy. He has picked up his favorite things and all those things. Repeat sounds and actions to get attention. So he can make noises to get attention. He wants everybody to look at him, right? Response to simple spoken requests. Basically, you tell him something, then he'll try to respond to the simpler ones, right? I don't want to go into details, but you know, just simple things like simple commands, right? Then simple gestures like shaking head, no, no, no. They start saying no. They shake for head for no. You know, though they don't say no, they shake the head. Then they can wave bye bye. They start to wave bye bye by one. Dada, mama, all those things can start by 1 year. They generally start, right? Tries to say words. Tries to say words to, that you like mimicry, basically, like to what you say, whatever the way words say, they try to say it back again, right? Looks at right pictures, things when you name. Now when you point out at pictures with the names, they will look at those pictures. Sometimes they might point at the picture, sometimes they might not point, right? Then copies gestures, bangs two things together. Now you might have seen this, notice that when you give two building blocks or two objects together, they start banging each other. So this happens at 1 year, right? Puts things in a container and takes it back. This is also a very, very popular, common thing that the babies do. They put things into some container or a mug or whatever it is, a small objects, and they put it out. Then again put it back in and take it out like that, right? Uh, they can sit now by absolutely 1 year. I told you that by 10 to 12 months they should sit without support. If they don't sit without support, then there is something that's a red flag. Basically, you have to see what is wrong, right? Then pulls back to stand, walks holding the furniture. Now they start holding the furniture and walking, taking the first few steps by 12, 13 months, 12, 13, 14. These are the things. Some children by 13, some children by even 11 months, they take few steps, some children 10 months also. By 12 months, they are supposed to cruise around the furniture, basically. And then may stand alone for few seconds and then they can fall off, right? Now at 1 year, if your child does not crawl, can't stand when supported, does not say mama, dada, does not point to things, which starts by 9 months, then now the other thing is that you start, if you are losing what you have attained. Now say like if the child has been doing something from 4th, 6th, 9th month and suddenly you have lost those skills, that is something to look for, right? Then what happens at 18 months? At 18 months, he starts having temper tantrums. Now, if he does not get what he wants, he gets tempered. He gets really angry about things. He goes into tantrums, right? Then show affection to familiar people. Now, familiar people, he shows affection, that he becomes very close to them, right? With familiar people, and then he shows lots of affection, right? Then he plays with dolls, like, especially a girl will try feeding a doll. He looks at around and he starts feeding. He starts caring for that doll, right? Then several single words. They will say several things. Says and shakes head no. Now that starts from 1 year and is upgradation. By 18 months, he shakes the head saying no. So now we stopped at 18 months. So by 18 months, may have temper tantrum, like I told you. Then he says no, then points to someone that he wants. Now earlier, he was like, we had to point out something and then he looks. Now he can point to things where he wants. Now if he wants something, if he wants like an object, he can point to that. He won't ask for it, but he will point to that. So that happens by 18 months. Scribbles on his own to and fro. So when you give us pencil or a crayon or whatever it is, he can scribble on his own. He builds a tower of 3 bricks. When you give bricks like or building blocks, he can build a tower up to 3, right? Then he can walk alone. By 18 months, your walking should be established. Now I told you, like from 12 months onwards, they start walking, and by 18 months, your walking should be perfectly established, right? So by the time the walking should be perfectly established, right? If he does not walk by 18 to 20 months, then it's a red flag where you have to look for it, right? Then can start walking up step. He keeps one step, then both the legs, then you start going like. Then he can squat. He can squat and pick objects, right? Then he can help undress. Now these are all very important things which happens by 18 months, right? Like I told you earlier, from 9 months onwards, there are lots of new things which are happening. So 9, 12, 18. By 18 months, he can undress himself. Like means he can remove a button, he can take off the cap or whatever it is, but he can't
put back the clothes, but he can just undress himself, right? He can remove a sock, things like that. Then he can drink from a cup. Maybe he might spill, but he can drink from a cup, right? Eats with a spoon. Still again the same thing. So that's why every aspect, now these things which happens on time, now 18 months babies should be always allowed to sit on the table, give him, put on a feeding chair, give him a cup, give him a spoon, and start feeding on himself. Because if you start feeding the baby at 18 months, he's not going to learn all these things. So therefore, parents, you have to keep this in mind, that each milestone you should allow it to happen on its own. Like, so for that, you should not hinder them, like if you want to hold something, you should allow them to hold that. If that milestone has to be achieved, allowed to achieve. Now, for an example, if you don't give him a cup and a spoon, or something to drink in a cup, he won't learn. So therefore, that's why for it's easier for the parents to just make a milk bottle or whatever it is and jack it into the mouth, but then again, he won't learn all these things. So therefore, it's very important to do this. Now, at 18 months, if the child cannot walk, now I so told by 18 months, he should be perfectly walking, right? If he does not walk by 18 to 20 months, then that is a red flag. Does not copy others, like imitates or mimicry, if he does not do that. Does not gain new words, that means he has not gained words from mama, baba, double syllabus, and he has not gained words, right? So by this time, he should have at least 6 words in his command, right? At least 6. That is generally 3 to 6 words by 18 months, right? Then again, from 9 months, I told you that if he loses by 1 year, if he loses from 1 year, 1.5 years, if he loses the skills what he have achieved at early stages, then that also you have to look for. Now, what happens at 2 years? At 2 years, copies others, especially adults and older children. Now, this is 2 years, another important milestone, right? Shows more and more independence. Now, initially at 1 year, he gets stranger anxiety, he clings to parents, he is not independent. He wants to be clingy. By 2 years, he becomes independent. He starts becoming independent. He can do things on his own, right? So, he likes doing what he wants, and then he doesn't like, he always likes to do things what you say no. If you say something not to do, he will do that, right? So then by 2 years, he'll be able to join 2 words, right? Then repeat words he overheard in a conversation. Now, parents' conversation, he can repeat the words, right? Begins to sort shapes and colors and makes and copies straight lines and circles. So basically now at 2 years, he will be able to basically sort out shapes and colors. Few colors and few shapes he'll be able to say. Actually, he can even copy like a straight line and a circle at 2 years, right? So now the tower building from 3 to 6. Now by 2 years, you will be able to build a tower of 6 to 8 like towers, right? Then you can do circular scribble. He can do, you give a crayon and give a white paper, they can just basically scribble circular. They start doing circular scribbles, right? Then might have more than handedness starts. Basically, your preference to hand starts, right? Stands in tiptoes. Now, you might have seen in your kids also, they start standing on tiptoes for most of the time. They start walking on tiptoes also, some of them, right? Then the other important thing is they can kick a ball. Now, so far, they cannot kick a ball. By 2 years, when you give a ball, they will be able to kick, though it is not very effective at 2 years, but they can kick a ball. Now, when you start walking at 18 months established, by 2 years, they begin to run, right? Then he can climb onto and out of the furniture on his own. That he just climbs, he clings, he climbs, crawls onto the furniture, and then he climbs down. Then walks up and stairs by holding, right? One step at a time, and he walks up by holding the railing. Okay. Now, what you should look for at 2 years if is not achieved. Does not use 2-word phrases like drink milk. 2-word phrases. If he does not look at do at 2 years, then you have to have that back in your mind. Does not know things like common things like the brush and the spoon and the cup, things like that. He doesn't know. Doesn't copy actions and words. Does not copy the actions. What you do, and the words, right? Does not follow simple instructions. You give him simple instructions by 2 years, and if he does not follow, right? Does not walk steadily. That means he walks, he falls. He does not walk steadily. By 18 months, you should be able to walk steadily. By 2 years, if you don't walk steadily, then there is something serious going on, right? Then again, the loses the skill what he has achieved before. Okay. Now we'll go to third year. What happens at 3 years, right? Now now I'm trying to link all these things from strange anxiety to 9 to 1 year to becoming independent at 2 years, and by 3 years you become very affectionate to friends, right? Shows affections to friends without any prompting, like they become very affectionate to their age group children. Then they take turns, they share games, they take turns in games now, right? So now these are very, very important things which is rapidly happens in a child from 1.5 to between 2 and 3. There are so many things which happen. So you have to have a good look and follow the child, what he is doing and what he is not doing, right? Then he becomes very concerned when the child is crying, right? When a child cries, he becomes very concerned, right? Then he understands what is mine, his, hers. He can understand very well, right? Then he can, now, initially he's clingy, then strange anxiety, clingy and all those things. Then he becomes a little independent. Now he can separate from the mom and dad. Now from 3 years, you can leave them at someone's house. He'll be all right, right? Then now he can dress and undress himself also. He can dress also. He can put up buttons. He can put up the hat or take off the hat. And some of the babies can put on the socks and remove the socks also. But that happens by 3 years, right? Then says the first name, age and sex. If you ask him, what is your name? He tells. Age also he'll be able to say, even whether he's a boy or a girl, right? Then he starts talking well to strangers. He becomes very talkative by 3 years. He talks to strangers. Conversation using 2 to 3 sentences. Now sentences from 2 years, from 2, he becomes to 3 sentences, 2 to 3 sentences. Copies a circle and vertical line. Now he can copies again, the same thing which I told, we can copy. Then he can name a friend. He can name his friend. He can tell the name of his friend apart from his name, right? Then he climbs well. Then the other important thing is he can pedal a tricycle, right? Just remember at 3 years, tricycle, right? Walks up and down the stairs. Initially at 2 years, he'll be walking one step, one leg, and then one leg at a time. Now we can keep one foot like in each step and then start climbing. That is a perfect climbing, right? Now you have to look for the signs. If he falls down with a lot of trouble with stairs, with he falls down on climbing stairs, and now his speech is becoming clearer and clearer. If he drools and has very unclear speech, that is also you have to look for. Does not speak in sentences, right? He breaks, then he leaves a pause and says, you have to look for. Doesn't understand simple instructions. So this understanding simple instructions starts from early, and does not want to play with others with toys. He doesn't share toys with others. Now this is also very important. Different disorders comes with these, whether you share toys, whether you don't share toys. So basically, if he does not share toys, which is not affectionate to the friends, then you have to look for. Does not make an eye contact. Now this is the other thing which you have to look for. When you look at him, when you talk to him, he doesn't have a good eye contact to you. He ignores you. He doesn't look into your eyes and talk. You have to look for. Then again, loses skills when he has attained. So what happens at 4 months? He tries to become more and more independent. He tries to play game on his own. He plays on his own. He plays mom and dad. They can play like, they dress like mom and dad and plays, right? Then prefers playing with children rather than self, right? He likes to share. He likes to play games. He likes to do with other children and his friends of the same. Talks about likes and dislikes. They will be able to talk about what they like and what they dislike, right? Then he can sing a song from his memory, like maybe 2 lines or 3 lines, but he can sing a song. He can start singing. Tell stories, though it's incomplete sometimes. By most of the children, by 4 years, they can say at least a part of the stories. Name colors and numbers. Starts to understand time. Now the time matters now, whether it's morning or evening or afternoon. Sometimes some of these children are very intelligent in that way, right? Can use a scissor. in cutting. So you can see in your child, like when you give a scissor at 4 months, they'll be able to use it, the scissors in cutting things. So they can hop and stand in one foot and catches a bouncing ball. Now with bouncing ball, though they drop it, they can catch the bouncing ball. When you bounce the ball onto them, they can catch it. So act early. If the child at 4 years does not jump in one place, has trouble in scribbling, ignores the other children, does not respond to the people outside, does not understand the name, same and different, what is different and the same, right? Does not understand the opposite things, speaks very unclearly. Now I told you that from 2.5, 3 years, you start speaking, and then if you are very unclear by 4 years, then you have to look into that. These are all red flags, right? Then loser skills, one he had before. Now, I have just covered up to 4 years. I think these are things I'm sure that most of the parents know these, most of these milestones they have gone through their children. Just keep things in your mind that what to look for at that specific age groups, and then have an attention, keep jotting down what he is doing, and what he is not doing at that age, which will help you to in future, if you want to to intervene in getting something done in therapies and all those things, that helps you a lot. Now I have just put whatever the signs which are very important, some of the signs and symptoms of developmental delay. Now, failure to respond to name, which is absolutely an important point. Resistance to cuddling and playing with others. That means you don't interact with others, and then you don't have affectionate, right? Lack of facial expression. So there is no smile, there is no grin, there is no sadness, there is no facial expression. Inability to speak or difficulty in speaking, or carrying out a conversation where he has started. Remembering numbers, words, all those things. Then repetitive movements. If you're doing the same movements over and over again, every day, every time, then there is something wrong. Then developing specific routines. He has his specific routines. If he starts developing at that small age, you should keep jotting and then get your healthcare worker to healthcare personnel or doctor to know about this, right? Then when he has coordination problems, like he can't stand, he falls off, he can't sit, he falls off, he can't walk, he can't run, he falls off. Learning and developing more slowly than the others. So you compare, right? Now you don't have to compare exactly. Should not be exactly the same. You don't have to be the same, but at least certain things you should be able to do. Rolling, sitting, crawling, walking very late. So like I told you, there is a upper limit. Now if you exceed the upper limit, then you'll have to look for difficulty in communication and socializing with others. So now when you look at all these milestones, you'll see that they are like you have to do certain things. Now if you don't communicate by that time, then you'll have to look for, keep jotting. So when you come to a stage where he's, like I told you, like by 3-4 years, if you're not able to socialize very well, then obviously a doctor or the healthcare caregiver or a therapist or whoever who is going to get involved should know about this. Then the IQ, very low IQ than average. But then problems remembering things, remembering most of the things, right? Difficulty in talking or talking very, very late. Now beyond that, now so you start talking by 1.5, like the babble starts, from that onwards, you start clearly talking by 3-4 years. And if you're not doing those, achieving what I have told you before, then you'll have to look for difficulty in problem solving and logical thinking, and trouble learning in school. So that is entirely different thing when you go to start schooling. If you have trouble in concentrating in school, as well as you are not moving with other children, you're not gelling with other children, then there is something wrong. Now these are the warning signs, and at any age, if the mother is concerned that there is something wrong, because I told you from the beginning that the mother is the closest to the baby, who knows every bit of the baby from birth till the baby grows. So she is the most important person to look for. When she is a little concerned about some of the milestones, okay, she's the first person to comment it, then you'll have to take it very seriously. right? Regression in previously acquired skills, like I told you, from 9 months, 12 months, 2 years, that whatever the skills you have attained, if you are regressing, if you are losing those skills, then this is at any age. If you are regressing, that is serious. Then at 10 weeks, not smiling. So by 10 weeks is generally about 2.5 to 3 months, 2.5 months, right? So if you are not smiling by 2.5 to 3 months, that is serious. By 6 months, you have the primitive reflexes. I didn't want to tell you about the primitive reflexes because that, as a common man, you don't have to know what are the primitive reflexes, right? So if you are having those reflexes which you had when you are when the baby is in the tummy, right? Those reflexes disappear by 6 months, most of them. So if you still have those reflexes, that is something wrong. Then the squint, the eye squint. If the child is having persistent squint, you'll have to look for. Then hand preferences. Little interest in toys and noises. If it does not have hand preferences, if it does not have interest in toys or people or noises, he doesn't look at noises, he doesn't turn into noises, then there is something wrong. Then at 10 months, these are 6 months which I told you. By 10 to 12 months, if he's not sitting, no double syllable babble like mama, dada, then no pincer grasp. That is, you are not picking up things with your thumb and the index finger. That is something serious, right? So at 18 months, no walking independently. So I told you by 18 months, you should walk perfectly. If you're not walking independently, that is something serious. Fewer than 6 months, at 6 words at 18 months, and still mouthing and drooling by 18 months, where you can't, your speech, your not clear, clarity of the speech is not there, then you'll have to look for. Then by 2.5 years, no 2 to 3 word sentences. I told you by 2 to 3 years. 2 years, you should be able to say make a word with 2 sentences, right? 2 word sentences, a sentence with 2 words. If you are not achieved that by 2.5 years, then you have to look for. That is quite serious, right? Then by 4 years, you have to be really speaking well, in the sense like very intelligible speak, right? Not jabbering. So if you are not, that is not happening by 4 years, that is something to be concerned, right? Now, these are the few causes of development delay. Why do you have development delay? Now, I told you some of these important things initially. I explained to you when the mother is pregnant, when after the delivery, what are the factors which influences this developmental delay. Now, these are the causes of developmental delay, right? So you have genetic and hereditary conditions like Down syndrome. Now, these are things, when you get a Down's baby, you can get developmental delay. Then metabolic disorders like a condition called phenylketonuria, right? Then trauma to the brain, any injury to the brain, any insult to the brain can cause developmental delay. Then psychological trauma. Now, when you undergo, it is called post-traumatic stress disorder. Basically, what happens is that when you have a bad experience, like a trauma where you are lively seeing the trauma, like a death of someone or killing of someone in front of you, and you go into a shock, and then that is post-traumatic, right? That causes like a shock state where your developmentally you go delayed, like you go backwards, right? Then exposure to toxins like alcohol exposure, lead poisoning, right? Then infections, any infection, especially meningitis, brain infections, right? Can cause spinal cord, basically a higher mental, the brain infections can cause, or infection in the blood which goes to the brain or different organs gets affected, can cause problems. Then the other thing is, we don't give much value onto this deprivation of food and environment. Now, even if you don't give proper nutrition, proper food, and you make the child devoid of an environment, devoid of a housing, devoid of the affectionate, all those things, the clothings, all those things also can cause developmental delay in some way, right? So then the development delay can be a symptom of other conditions like autistic spectrum disorders, cerebral palsy, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, myopathies. That is, myopathies are muscle disorders, Down syndrome, like I mentioned earlier. Then there is something called Fragile X syndrome. We don't have to go into details. Now, these are conditions where it gives rise to developmental delay from the beginning. So you can pick it up by your signs, that whether you are going to one of these, like especially like autistic spectrum disorder, where you should be picking up very early, right? Now, The other aspect of my coverage or the lecture is the early intervention and therapy. Now, if you know what are the places where the baby has gone wrong, or basically the baby has not attained, you jot it down, you mark it down, then you go to the next level. Next level is you go to show the medical person, or basically the doctor, or a physiotherapist, or whatever it is you have, who will help you out, right? So basically it is a team effort. Basically you need a team to act on, you know. So you have a team. I have put the most important team into the slides. You have someone called a developmental pediatrician who knows basically all about the milestones, all about the what are the milestones, which are targets, what are the red flags, and then that person will identify where you have gone wrong, whether these milestones are very important, and then from there onwards he jots it down. He is the one who finds out whether medical problems have caused this or psychological problems have caused this, and then he will diagnose the medical problem and give advice and medical on medical issues, and he will guide you what is the next plan, like whether to go to a physiotherapist, whether to go to an occupational therapist, and all. Who is a physiotherapist now? Now, everybody knows that when someone has a problem, you straight away go to physiotherapist. You should know what a physiotherapist does. Physiotherapist is mainly involved with assessment and management of gross motor difficulties. That is like big things like, you know, he's not able to sit, he's not able to stand, he's not able to walk, he's not able to hold objects, things like that, where it's gross motor. So that physiotherapist help. Then abnormal tone and prevention of deformities, like in conditions like cerebral palsy. Now, cerebral palsy, you become very stiff and very flaccid. Some of them becomes stiff. So then physiotherapist plays a part, right? Then he provides you with special equipments like walkers and sitting equipment, standing, you know, things like that. Then, you know, splints and all those things. So that is a person. There is a person who provides all these things, is called a physiotherapist. And next is who is an occupational therapist. Occupational therapist is for assessment and management of fine motor difficulties. Now, fine motor difficulties like holding something very small, putting things into your mouth, right? Like drawing, writing, coloring, all those things, advising on small toys, playing and appliances, and providing care for daily living, like, you know, washing your face, brushing your teeth, you know, things like that, dressing, undressing, all those things, the occupational therapist plays a part, right? Then speech and language therapist, advice on feeding, assessment and management of speech, language, and all aspects of communication. Now, most of these children now have gone through all these things and gone through all these therapists, gone through whole team. Sometimes they take the wrong turn and then go to the wrong person to get things wrongly. So therefore, you have to pick up where to go basically. Now, the speech and language therapy is for feeding, assessment and management of speech and language. Now, if you have a delay in speech, if you have a unclear speech, if you are not attained speech on that particular time, then probably you will have to approach a speech and language therapist. Then the psychologist. Now, this is also very, very important, which we are basically not giving much importance, right? The psychologist. Basically, psychologist supports the child as well as the caregiver, as especially the whole family as a unit, giving support as well as counseling, as well as important in the psychologist plays a part from the beginning into schooling into adulthood also, because that gives you a mental strength basically. So always when you have this intervention going on, always you should have your psychologist by the side, right? Then the special need teacher. Now, everybody, when they start going to school, like, you know, a little disabled or differently able child, I would rather put this differently able child, start going to school. Some of them go to mainstream schools, some of them go to their specialized schools. So now you have this special needs teacher who knows their needs of the child, that individual needs, right? That special need teacher can be the main teacher in the school, or he could be a shadow teacher. That means on the mainstream school, she can act as a shadow teacher, where you can basically, that teacher can advise on the needs of the baby, what the baby needs, what are the baby is achieving, all those things, and those kind of things. So therefore, special need teacher is someone who can look your progress also, sees how much you are progressing in your overall activities, right? So this is the team basically on how to when you have to early intervene, you have to approach starting from the doctor into the whole team. So therefore, in a child who needs attention or a child who needs care, you need to approach the whole team basically, and then from there onwards you have to work it up. How do you go about, who needs where, which areas to go, rather than going to the wrong area. Thank you very much. I hope you understood it very well. I know that it's a little too fast, but because of the time strains, I had to go through a little fast, but I hope that you understood most of them. I think most of the parents know what are these. It's just like a reminder for, so that, you jot it down. And then my only advice is that when you have a baby or a child, or baby from birth, you start having a logbook and start jotting down things like, or writing down things, whatever the baby is achieving at that age, like especially like 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? What are the things he's doing? Whatever he's doing, jot it down, and then possible with you can record his activities, you can record his sitting, you can do a video recording of every aspect, so that later on you don't forget. Now suddenly you come at 5 years to the doctor and say that my child has got is not able to talk, he's not clear in his speech. Then when you ask, when did he smile at you, at what age did the baby smile at you, you can't remember basically, right? When did he sit? Now they scratch their head and think, no, you can't remember. So to help the healthcare workers to help you out, basically if you have all those things in order, it's easier to intervene, and then we know where the problem has occurred and then start working on that. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, MJF Charitable Foundation, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Gopi, for your hard work. And thank you for the opportunity. Though I have been with the MJF Charitable Foundation, but I have not been able to deliver them things for the last few years, many years. So I hope that I will be able to do more and more important lectures on these topics, what the MJF Charitable Foundation wants. Thank you, Gopi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was a very clear and informative session, because as you said, like the parents, not many parents will be giving importance on the developmental milestones. As like we note down the like the sort of growth chart, like the weight and other. We give importance to the other areas, but milestones also plays a very important area on the development. And as you mentioned, it's a very key thing to. I think we should have a chart, like in all the child book. They should have a chart where they can mark down these milestones, so that they can, whenever there is a need, they can check on it. And also at our centers, we also do a very multidisciplinary approach on early identification and intervention. So that we have been following, like we have a team with like all the specialists, as you have mentioned. Even the assessment we do that way, so that we can identify the problems as early as possible and do the intervention, which is a very key thing for the child success. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And Tamindri is there, like she's our general manager.
Hello, Dr. Shafeek. I'm not
Hi,
sure
how
if
are
you
you?
can see me, but you'll at least hear me.
No, I can see you. I can see you.
Okay,
I can see you well.
Good. Thank you very much for this session, because you said something that is, I think, very important that we don't usually talk about in Sri Lanka, which is that looking after a child with disability is definitely a team effort. And we truly believe that at the foundation, and that's something that we really try to promote. And at the center of it is, yes, the mother and the father. Both of them are very important, and they play such key roles. So it was a really nice summary, and I learned a lot, for all the age ranges.
Okay.
But it was
I'm glad.
really great.
I'm glad. Yeah, basically, what is the take home message is basically, I always want these mothers or father, especially the mother, like I pointed out earlier, to jot out things like, I of course give a chart, like these 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months. I give them a chart. I have a milestone chart. So every time they come for a vaccine or whatever it is, I give them the chart and just to go through that, because the mother is the person who is 24/7 with the baby.
Yeah.
And she'll be able to, because we spend about 5 to 10 minutes. That's all, right? The mother is the one who can see. So I tell them, okay, go through this for about two weeks to 1 month, and then start ticking what he's doing into that. So then when you come back, you can find out. By doing that method, I have found so many babies by 25 days to 30 days who is not hearing, at very early stages.
Yeah.
So, and then I had picked up few children with autistic spectrum disorder by 9 months to 1 year.
Wow.
Because the pointing at objects, when you show an object by 9 months to 1 year, if you are not looking at that object, then there is something wrong with the child.
Yeah.
So that is a very clear point, So therefore, if you can keep a track on that, it's easier to manage them.
I also really appreciated I also appreciated your offer of doing more lectures. We'll definitely take you up on it, because great.
Yeah, I know, because I had come few times there, and then I had given few lectures or live lectures there at the foundation. Yeah. But then I was, because of the time constraint, I couldn't do it. But I would like to do that, because this is something which is the message to be carried, like, things like, there are some very, very important topic I was just discussing with Gopi. That,
because he is he's a he has a lot of special different funds, particularly on nutrition on children with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, which is a very, very important area. So we will be waiting to have you.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
We look forward to having you again, Dr. Shafeek. Thank you so much. And everybody who is online on Facebook as well as on Zoom, thank you for joining us for the 6th webinar. Our next webinar will be on the 18th. It will be on yoga again, but focusing particularly on children with physical disabilities, and it will be with Ms. Srimati Sadesh Kumar. Please join us on the 18th from 4 to 5 p.m. Thank you, Dr. Shafeek, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you.